There we go. We're live right now, bro. How's everybody doing?
I'm doing good.
I know, I'm glad to be back.
Well, we got it on here, so let's see if we could share it to everybody and their brother.
What's up, everybody? How's everybody doing tonight? Glad to be back. How you doing, David?
Hey, I tell you what, I'm feeling a lot better than I did when this thing kind of come to an end here, screeching halt here. I think it was about 6-7 weeks ago. We've had a lot of things that have happened, both personally and in the NFL. And hopefully we'll get that all caught up and let everybody know what's going on in the league here tonight as the Sunday Spectacular has returned.
Yes, there's been a lot of stuff going on in the NFL. It's finally starting to pick up. It was pretty quiet a couple of weeks there. I was actually getting kind of bored.
Right. Well, I mean, there's always a lull in the middle of the summer. You don't get, many things that occur. And for the most part, there really isn't anything to talk about. I mean, all's quiet, as they say on the Western Front, as you prepare for what could be, a really spectacular year coming up here in the NFL. I'm going to start out, now that I've got this going, I'm going to start out with, pretty much the topic of conversation has been this week, has been the running backs. You got 3 running backs that were franchise tagged. They don't want to pay them a whole ton of money, but they don't want them to leave because they're all valuable. Now, the only one that signed their franchise tender is Tony Pollard of the Dallas Cowboys. Now, the reason that he signed his tender is because he hasn't made any money. He was a low round draft pick. He hasn't gotten any of them millions yet, and he'll get $10 million by signing this contract. It's a guaranteed contract as a franchise deal. Okay. So he's going to get his money, and he'll do well for them as the lead runner. He's coming off of an injury. So really, everything right now is at his advantage to sign the deal, play out the contract. If he has a big year, there's a chance they either franchise him again, which will mean a 20% increase in his money next year, or, he might be able to negotiate a longer-term deal. But these other guys that have been in the league, they have made some money. They were upper, round draft picks. You have Saquon Barkley and Josh Jacobs. Both of those gentlemen, have been franchise tagged, but have not signed their tender. So they don't have to show up for training camp. Okay. They don't have to show up. They don't have to do anything until week 1 of the season begins. Then they would start to lose game checks, if they don't, show up and arrive. They won't get fined because they're not under contract. Okay. They can sit out as long as they want. Saquon Barkley talked about how on the Matters podcast, I believe it was, that there's a chance he may have to sit out. And it's not just about him. It's for the betterment of the position all around. These running backs take a beating. They're valuable. But the more they run, if they get 2,000 yards, they don't get a big contract the next year. Oh, well, he got worn down last year. They don't get rewarded like they used to for the kind of work that they put in. And it doesn't look like that they're going to get any kind of long-term deal now, of course, because the deadline is passed. They'll have to either play on the franchise tag or sit out. Now, I believe they can sit out up to half the season before they show back up and go ahead and sign their deal so they can get credit for this year, not the money credit, but the credit of playing a season in the NFL. And so, if they want that credit because it goes towards pensions later, other kinds of long-term care and stuff, they'll have to show up about halfway through the year and sign the deal if they want the credit for that. But, I don't think anybody is going to sit out. Look at what happened the last time that occurred. Le'Veon Bell sat out. He missed a year. He lost all that money. And then he was rusty. He came back. He played for the Jets, who was not a very good team. He got the crap beat out of him. He got injured. And, he was never the same after he left the Steelers, Chris.
Exactly. I want to get to some comments real quick. What's up, Ron? How you been? We hope everything's doing good. He said, hey, hello, gentlemen. Hope, David, you're doing better. Same with me. We're doing good. Ron said he's feeling a lot better. Or Dave, sorry, Dave. What's up, Matthew? Thank you. Appreciate that. He said he's digging the show. And then Ron said, guys like Le'Veon Bell, Zeke have killed the running back cash because of what they never did after signing those big contracts. Not good news for a lot of well-skilled running backs coming out next year like Jonathan Taylor. And you hit the nail on the coffin right there. You're 100% right. That has a lot issues. Now, I understand the frustration of these running backs. They're seeing these quarterbacks get paid this money. They're seeing wide receivers get paid money. They're watching defense guys actually making more money than them. They actually just had something I read that there's actually kickers making a punter making more money than these running backs. And I would be pissed too as a running back. But at the same sense, when you got guys that got the major deals and they've done nothing with, Now you got teams scared to give that kind of money to a running back. And now the NFL's, these teams are using 2, 3, 4 different backs week in, week out.
Yeah,
They're not going to commit that kind of money.
There are very few bell cows now in the NFL. You know, even Nick Chubb, who is currently the highest paid running back in the NFL, he signed his deal in 2020. Okay, he's making $16 million a year. He was splitting time the last few years with Kareem Hunt, who is out there and available, along with Dalvin Cook and Leonard Fournette. So these guys have no leverage. Okay?
No. They have no leverage at all. The thing is, the only leverage they might have is if they sit out. And the only why I'm saying this is because to be honest, if you break it down, Bell said this out of his own mouth. When he set out that year, he said his worst mistake he did is he didn't take care of his body like he was when he was playing week in and week out. He slacked off a lot. So to me, if you're a running back and you're really gonna sit out, you better work out like you're playing every week. Because if you don't, you're going to be another Bell. You're going to be rusty. And it's still a risk because not playing a year in the league, you still have that chance of it actually happening. It's not a given that you're just going to be able to pick up and take off. I mean, we've seen people leave the league, make it back in the league, and never be the same like they were before. You know, it's a gutsy situation, and honestly, in this type of sport, when you got limited years and especially in that position, you're kind of in a catch-22. It's either play and make money, don't play and lose money, and maybe you never have a career after that.
Yeah, for me, I look at the situation like this. If you sit out, you lose all the money. If you play, you may not be getting paid what you think you're worth, but at least you're still making that money. You're getting the benefits of being in the league. If you play well, you got to remember, these guys can get endorsement deals off of the field. Okay. They can make other money because they are playing and they're playing well through other means that are not necessarily football related, because these guys can be stars. Saquon Barkley's got a ton of off the field, commercials and endorsements in New York. That's a big market there, plenty of money there to be made. Josh Jacobs is in Las Vegas. Well, they came from California, so they're double dipping a little bit. You get your California money, your Las Vegas money off the field. He led the league in rushing. Okay. If there is, endorsement deals to be had out there, he can get some. Like I talked about before, you've got all these other guys that are out there and available. It would be a huge mistake to try and sit out. Okay. One thing that these guys, I'm sure, are aware of, but nobody talks about, the franchises can rescind the franchise tag if they have not signed the deal. These guys decide they're going to sit out. Okay. You got training camps that are getting ready to, that are opening up. You're going to have people that get injured. And if these guys decide to sit out, you're going to miss an opportunity to sign one of these guys that are really good off of the, just off the field. You got these guys available. And so if Saquon Barkley decides he's sitting out, if I'm the New York Giants, this is what I do. I bring in Dalvin Cook. I bring in Leonard Fournette and Kareem Hunt, and I work them all out. I check them all out. We go through the playbook a little bit, see what they know, because even, and they're going to have all of training camp if they decide to sign one of these guys now to learn the plays. They know they're going to be the starting running back if they come in because Barkley's not going to play. Same thing with Josh Jacobs. And you can get a running back off the street for $7 or $8 million, to be your starter.
Yeah, totally agree.
Unbelievable to me as this is all happening. Okay. Melvin Gordon signed with the Baltimore Ravens for $3.1 million.
And
The
honestly,
guy
that's a
played
good
with the
pay
Dam
rate for
last
him.
year in Denver and was signed off the street to the practice squad for Kansas City and won a Super Bowl for doing nothing. Okay, and got $3.1 million from the Ravens. You don't think you can't get $7 or $8 million if you are a Dalvin Cook and going to be the starter for the Giants instead of Saquon? I think they can. And it'll save the franchise money by signing this guy to a 1-year deal, and bringing him in.
I think so too.
And so, like I said, my thoughts are, I think Leonard Fournette is going to end up with the New England Patriots. They've flirted with each other a couple of times over the last few years, and I think that he fits their system a little bit better, than the other guys that are available out there.
Oh, for sure, because he got Tom Brady. He's played with Tom Brady the last 2-3 years now.
Yeah.
So New England's still running Tom Brady's offense. They haven't really changed much.
Well, I wouldn't exactly say that. They've changed offensive coordinators, and you've had a few years to change over. It went from Josh McDaniels. Then they had the defensive coordinator being the offensive coordinator for no reason last year, which was silly to me. Now you've got Bill O'Brien, who used to be the offensive coordinator, but they have a lot of different terminologies. They're going to play the game a lot differently, but still, like I said, they've flirted with him. I think Fournette ends up in New England. That leaves Dalvin Cook, and that leaves Kareem Hunt. Now, I think Kareem Hunt, at this stage of his career, he's played quite a few years. He played in Kansas City, got in trouble, went to Cleveland. I think he's been there for at least 3 or 4 years. And so, he's getting up there in like his 7th or 8th year in the league. I think he'd be a good split time back for somebody. Dalvin Cook can probably still be a starter, but as a Vikings fan, I'm down on him. And I don't know if it was the offensive line, if he was hurt last year, or, he's starting to, lose a step a little bit. Great receiver out of the backfield. But when it comes to running between the tackles, he just started to falter last year the longer the season went on. And he's one of the people that I want to blame the playoff loss on last year, the Giants. He did not run well in that game. Kirk Cousins pretty much had to do it all. And after watching this Netflix special, Quarterback, have you seen this, Chris? Did you watch it?
I just started watching episode 1 right before we started the show.
I have a newfound respect for Kirk Cousins. Okay,
I was just going to bring that up.
A bitch. Okay, and I tell you what, a lot of people badmouth him. He's just been in bad situations. Now, I think he's got him a pretty good coach. Last year, everybody wants to point to the final play of the season because, they didn't get the first down and they ended the game. They talk about that play in Quarterback. The call comes in. He didn't have time to check anything else. Everybody else is covered. It's either get rid of the ball to somebody who can make a play or get sacked and he's screwed, And so he did what he had to do, the best possible outcome. The receiver couldn't make a play. He gets tackled, and that's the end. You can't be perfect all the time, and you can't expect these guys to, overcome so much adversity and obstacles in their way all the time. We see spectacular plays, and we go, wow. But not everybody can make those plays, okay?
Yeah.
Not everybody, they don't happen every time, and that's why they're wow plays. If that dude was able to make the guy miss and then get the first down, he'd have been a hero for that.
Yeah.
But he wasn't able to make that play.
And Actually, hang on. I'm going to get Ron's comment. He had a couple comments. Uh, he said, I can actually see the running backs getting picked a lot more in the draft just for lower money and to recycle them every 4 years unless you know you have a legit back that won't disappoint.
Absolutely. Yeah,
I agree. I agree with you 100%, Ron. You've been on point tonight. He also said Cook has some legal issues to work out from what I hear.
I haven't heard anything about that. The legal issue for the Viking that I saw was Jordan Addison got a ticket for driving 145 and a 55, the rookie. Not a very good look right out of the gate for this guy. You know,
no, but at least on his behalf, and I'm not sticking up for him,
right.
but on his behalf, at least he was sober, wasn't drinking,
right? Yeah,
wasn't
he's
on
not
drugs.
Henry Ruggs.
And it just shows that this kid is a young kid running his first Lamborghini, probably drove in his first time in his whole life. And he was out there trying to top it out like, I don't care who you are. We would all want to top out a fast car.
Yeah.
He just happened to get pulled over at the wrong time of doing it. And now he's going to get paid. And I think he's going to get probably a 6-game suspension.
No, not for being a real fast driver.
Hey,
I think he could get suspended, but it's not going to be for like 6 games. Nobody was killed. He wasn't drunk. He's just driving super fast. It's not a safe situation, and somebody could have gotten hurt. But the legal process will take care of most of that. Yeah. It's Alvin Kamara that's going to get the 6-game suspension for the assault and battery that he pled down in Las Vegas from the Pro Bowl a couple of years ago. And that means your boy Jamal Williams will be the starter for the Saints this year coming out of the gate. You've got a few other people that are having some legal issues. I wrote them down here.
But hey, hang on. Actually, before we go to anybody else.
Right.
Kamara. See, now I'll be a little upset if he only gets 6 games. I think he should get more than 6 games. He actually physically did something and literally broke a law by fighting with a civilian, for one. Second, you're going to suspend you're giving Williams, receiver for the Lions, a 6-game suspension for betting on a non-NFL game in a facility. I mean, tell me what's worse out of the two.
I'll tell you, I understand where you're coming from. It's the precedent that has been set in the past. As somebody who's not a lawyer, but I play one on the streamer here, I can tell you that 6-game suspensions for domestic violence. This was a guy and a guy, not a guy on a female. This is 2 adults. Yes, he wasn't a football player. It's not on the field. It's off the field. It took 2 years to finally hash out the legal part of it. And so, as far as Jamison Williams being suspended, and then there are several other players, Isaiah Rodgers for, the Colts, that have been suspended for gambling at the facilities. That goes to the heart of the integrity of the game. They're trying to make a point. I don't know whether or not he has ever decided to appeal the suspension. I think if he did, there's a possibility they'd reduce it by half. He's still got plenty of time coming up before the season begins, and maybe they're allowing sleeping dogs to lay for a while, and then they come back and say, hey, like to appeal this. When it comes to legal off the field things, you have precedents that have already been set. The commissioner and the commissioner's office does not want to set new standards just because they conflict with something else that they're having punishment against.
I totally agree. I mean, I get it. You know what I mean? it's just kind of crazy just to look at it. And that, you know
Well,
what
and
I
you're
mean?
biased because I mean it's a Detroit Lion.
I'm
You
not
know.
trying to be biased. I'm being
I
honestly
mean, hey, there's
serious.
nothing you can do about that.
Oh, for
Okay.
sure.
We're all biased for our own teams. We all have a soft spot for, and then we get upset when we feel like our team or our players have been unjustifiably, I'm with you completely. I don't think you should have been suspended at all.
I think anybody
Because gambling is legal there. He
exactly.
didn't bet on an NFL game. And, they're advertising gambling all over the goddamn place. You can't watch a football game on TV without DraftKings, FanDuel, Barstool, everybody, Caesar's Palace, all of the above, BetMGM. And by the way, just real quick here, because we're talking, we're talking about gambling with the season coming up. If you're going to be new to gambling this year and you plan to bet on the NFL, get a hold of me and Chris. We'd sure like to have that extra, the extra bets for free for signing people up. I'm planning on betting. It's the only time
I
of the
plan
year
on
I
doing it.
do. Kansas was new this last year. I had a phenomenal year, and I'd have had an even better year if that damn Dalvin Cook had scored a touchdown on Thanksgiving. I'd have got another $1,500 last year. But I was up about $3,000 this last year, just nickel and diming it, $5 here and there, $10. And I'm sure we'll talk about it throughout the season when we make picks, when we talk about and review each weekend, the games. As far as I'm concerned, I think we're going to have Tuesday night shows and talk about what's happened this previous week, make predictions for the upcoming week every week as we go through the season. What do you think, bud?
I'm excited.
Yeah, it's going to be fun.
It's training camp. They're hitting each other in practice. Yeah. It's almost time.
Couple of big fights in Jets camp the other day, I heard. We are 11 days away from the first preseason game. The Cleveland Browns and the New York Jets at the Hall of Fame game in Canton, Ohio.
And August 19th, I will be at Ford Field to see the Jaguars. It's a preseason game.
Cool.
But I'm excited to at least make my trip to Ford Field. Well, try to sneak in the regular season game, but the hype train here is pretty crazy. And I'm not sure if there's going to be a ticket.
Prices of tickets have gone up because now they're starting to do good.
Yep. And it's pretty crazy around here right now. Speaking of betting, just shared a group and Renegades got a lot of people butthurt, but according to MGM, the odds on the highest odds to win a Super Bowl as of right now to the betting scales is the Detroit Lions, which blows my
everybody
mind.
betting on them to win?
A lot of people must be. I haven't placed that bet. I would never place that bet.
I don't think I'd take that bet. For me, and we'll talk about this over the upcoming few weeks before the season starts, I still like Kansas City as the favorite. You got to look at Cincinnati and Buffalo, and now the Jets in the AFC. In the NFC, Philadelphia is still the favorite. San Francisco.
Yep.
I still think Minnesota is a little bit better than Detroit, but they've lost some players.
You're just being biased over there.
Quite a few players, so they're going to be in the thick of it. And then I don't know where people are coming up with that the Atlanta Falcons are going to be the best team in the South. I really think it's going to be the New Orleans Saints, and I think they're going to be really good this year. They're going to be in a weak division, while Carolina will be improved because of coaching and some of the players that they brought in. They're looking to make some noise. I like some of the things that Atlanta has done, but I just don't see how they can go from, being where they were to suddenly they're going to win 11 games, just because they got Bijan Robinson. You're still dealing with basically a rookie quarterback in Desmond Ridder. Derek Carr is a veteran quarterback He's going to have a solid run game, a good offensive line. He's got plenty of weapons on the outside, and the New Orleans Saints defense is for real. So I don't know why, people are overlooking them. I think that they're, not talking about them right now so that it can be a big hyped up story later as far as the media is concerned.
Agreed. Ryan got some more comments. He got 3 comments. So let's get through these comments. He said he thought Cousins was good for Washington if they had built around him, and that team wouldn't have gone through all those QBs they had to go through. But Washington is Washington, and they have their own issues. And then he also, his next comment is, I wish Jameson Williams would appeal because it's just not fair compared to other suspensions for the other crimes in the NFL. I thought a fine would have been legit.
Right.
And then he just sent another comment. He said, I went to Vegas 3 months ago, placed a grand on the Lions to win it all. And of course, I thought 500 at KC just because I wasn't throwing a bunch of money, KC, because repeating is tough.
It is.
That's not a bad bet, though.
I think they're going to, but it is super tough to do. And they're going through a gauntlet in the AFC.
Yeah.
Last year, for the most part, they avoided a lot of injuries. Mahomes got a little nicked up there at the end and had to play with the high ankle sprain, but they missed Clyde Edwards-Helaire for half the season. When they played in the AFC Championship game, they were down to like their 4th, 5th, 6th wide receiver. Tony was out, Juju was out at the end. Kelsey had back spasms. So I mean, when it comes to, and we're talking about, placing bets on certain teams, you got to do the futures now before you get to training camp. Once the Sharks and everybody start looking at what's going on, in training camp, the odds are going to change on you. So if you want to get those long odds, you got to do it now, because once they start playing a little bit, even though it's just preseason, you're looking at a situation where, I'll give you an example, and this is a long time ago, but I've been watching football forever. In 2000, Trent Green goes down for the St. Louis Rams. The odds on them winning the Super Bowl skyrocket. Kurt Warner comes in. They play their first game. He throws like 5 touchdown passes in the first game against a pretty good team. And everybody goes, got to be a fluke. Odds go against you now suddenly. A little bit more time goes by. They win 2, 3, 4 in a row. The odds went from you can win a whole shit ton of money to holy shit, this team's for real. We better change the odds. And that will happen.
Oh, for sure.
Some of these teams. Every year, 40% of the teams that didn't make the playoffs, or I should say 40% of the teams that did make the playoffs do not go back to the playoffs the next year. There's 7 or 8 more teams, that are looking to join the playoff race this year, and you'll have teams that fall out of the playoffs, and I can name some of them right now. I don't think the Giants make the playoffs this next year. I don't think that the Chargers make the playoffs. I think that you're looking at, like I said, Tampa Bay ain't making the playoffs. They won the division with a poor record last year. You're going to have New Orleans is in that spot. You're going to have, Detroit's going to make the playoffs instead of the Giants. You're going to have a team like the Jets makes the playoffs instead of the Chargers, and so there's going to be some turnover. And so every year there's always a surprise. The Giants were a surprise last year. I think a lot of people were surprised by the Eagles. The Eagles snuck in the playoffs the year before, and then all of a sudden, bam, they're in the Super Bowl this last year. But you have teams with poor records that turn it around in a hurry because of coaching, additional free agents, and really good rookies. A lot of factors come in. Easy schedule. weather
Yep.
conditions, a lot of that stuff can really affect how the season moves forward.
Now, Ron, Jamison Williams suspension. Unfortunately, there's a rule with the suspension for gambling that the players cannot appeal it. So there's no chance of him appealing that suspension.
Yeah, that's something they need to work on with the players union.
And then
And while we're discussing the players union real quick, I got a little note here. Not much to talk about, but they've had Damaris Smith has been the executive of union chief for the Players Association in the NFL, and he was voted out here this off season. They've got a guy named Lloyd Howell, who is a lawyer from a bigwig firm there, and up on I-95 somewhere. He's going to be taking over in the 2024 season as the new chief head of the Executive Players Union. I just happen to have that here.
Well, hopefully maybe he can make some changes, make it make sense, because some of these rules and NFL's path these last couple of years, the problem
that they have is they just signed a 10-year deal a couple years ago. Okay. And so because it's a 10-year deal, it's going to be a while before, unless they want to strike, it's going to be a while before they're able to make any changes and wheel and deal some things, unless the NFL wants to play nice with their players union.
Yeah. We call it, what's I was going to say? I drew a blank.
That's okay. I got a bunch of stuff here. I just want to say that, I've been watching a lot of stuff going on here in the off season, and I've just got a few notes to go over with everybody, and we can discuss each one of them if you'd like. As training camps are opening, okay, we're getting a lot of rookies that are finally getting signed so that they can be there for training camp, learn the systems and such. This last week, you've got your quarterbacks. Bryce Young signed his contract, for Carolina, and you've got, Anthony Richardson and them. Will Levis signed his deal with Tennessee. And speaking of Tennessee, and this is another note that I've got on here, they started off strong last season, and then they took a nosedive at the end of the year and didn't make the playoffs after they had been the number one seed in the AFC the previous season, but got knocked off by Cincinnati. And, you look at the Tennessee Titans, and obviously their whole team is kind of in a bit of a change. We talked about it earlier in the offseason that there were whispers. They were looking to possibly trade Derrick Henry. They'd already traded A.J. Brown the previous year to Philadelphia. So all of the higher-priced players they're trying to flush out. But they kept Simmons, the defensive tackle. They signed him on a long-term deal. They restructured their safety bird. And then, you got Henry is still there, but it's going to be for a short amount of time. They drafted Hassan Haskins last year out of Michigan. He's one of the ones that's got legal trouble, domestic violence, flashing a gun. Who knows what's going to happen with him? They drafted another guy, and so I think they're preparing for Derrick Henry to leave. They bring in DeAndre Hopkins and to be a veteran wide receiver for them. I think they're basically wasting their money with him. He's lost a step. They don't have an elite quarterback to get him the ball. Tannehill's on his way out. They tried to replace him last year with Malik Willis. Now they brought in Will Levis in the first round this year to try and take his job also. So they're not for long with Henry. They're not for long with Tannehill. They signed a 2-year deal that's in effect a 1-year deal. They can cut ties with him after this season, but he's going to make a good amount of money with DeAndre Hopkins. I think their defense, for the most part, has been solid, but they lost a ton of people in free agency this offseason. And so I don't have a whole lot of expectations for the Tennessee Titans this year. We know Houston is rebuilding, and they've got a couple of cornerstones with the second and third pick. I expect Indianapolis to be better, but I still think that Jacksonville is going to be the lead dog in that division, and I expect them to be even better than they were at the end of last year.
Now, the only thing I can say about the Hopkins deal is if Tannehill can come and actually play decent, it might help them to a tad bit. I don't think they make any crazy runs and win the division or anything like that matter. I don't think they go far in the playoffs. If they do make it the playoffs, well, there's a chance. But then the brighter side, worst case scenario, Tannehill loses his job to this rookie, to Levis, and Levis has Hopkins to maybe lean on while he's learning to play. It's still not going to help your season. But that's the only positive things I could find out of that scenario. Because I agree with you. I don't think they're in a good position by any means.
Let's see. Okay, so we've got a lot of players that are not ready for training camp that, are on active rosters or being put on PUP list. For some of you that don't know out there, that's physically unable to perform. Bryce Hall, recovering from the ACL surgery last year. You've got some offensive linemen for Cincinnati are on the physically unable to perform list. Tashar Wharton of the Chiefs, physically unable to perform. So there's a lot of players that are going on to there. They got to pass their physicals. They got to be able to, go full speed before they can be on the active roster, and so by being in the PUP list, it gives them a chance to bring in some more people, some camp people, if you will, to see what they've got, in an effort to whittle it down to the 53-man roster that they'll have to have, the week before the season begins.
Yeah. Because Mosley is on there for the Lions, and then Jones is NFL, which I believe is non-football related.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm not too worried about Jones because he's a veteran. He's been working out with Goff and that all through the whole offseason with St. Brown and all the other receivers. So I expect him probably to miss the first couple of days and pick up when he's needed.
Well, and then, with training camp starting, we've talked about you've got people going on the PUP list. We've got the first-round picks all getting signed. We've got some free agents that have been out there that are coming in, and there's going to be more because you're going to start to have injuries, even in training camp. And there was kind of one today that caught me by surprise. And of course, it's a Chief. Kadarius Toney tweaked his knee in practice.
I was going to bring that up. I just couldn't think of his name.
He's expected to be their number one wide receiver this year. And so I'm sure that he'll be held out of all practices and things for a while as they, they have a pretty deep wide receiver room right now as they look for who's going to be probably their top 5 or 6 guys. They've got 8 or 9 guys that are all really pretty good, in my opinion. None of them are superstars except the possibility of Toney. Okay. I liked what he did last year. Of course, he had the huge punt return in the Super Bowl, caught another touchdown in the Super Bowl, played very well for them. They drafted Rashee Rice. They've got Sky Moore. They brought in John Ross, a former first-round draft pick who pretty much flamed out in Cincinnati and I think Buffalo. And then they've got Justin Ross, who was on injured reserve all last year. He was the number one receiver at Clemson when Trevor Lawrence was there, but he hurt his back and he hurt his foot, and he's recovering, from all these injuries, and he was looking very good this summer. You got Justin Watson, who used to play at Tampa Bay, played for him last year. They brought in Richie James from the Giants. Anyway, they have a deep wide receiver core. And when it comes to deep wide receiver cores, I just said the Giants. That reminds me of another note that I took. Cole Beasley signed with the New York Giants this week. And he used to be in Buffalo, where he played under offensive coordinator Brian Daboll, who is the head coach with the Giants now. But they have a really deep wide receiver core. But he knows the playbook and can help the younger players. I'm not sure he'll make the team, but for training camp purposes, that's probably a pretty good pickup for the Giants, as he can help the coaches get everybody on the same page for this upcoming year.
I think he'll make the team. I think it's just more of a depth signing, help with the younger players, rotate them in and out on some plays. Beasley's always been that package guy. You could bring him in and he can make some plays. Ron has another comment. He said he finds it funny that these guys aren't ready to perform. I mean, I have a year-round job, so why aren't they working out year-round? And I get it. There are injuries and surgeries that hold them back. But for guys that do not have injuries, this is your job. All you have to do is work out and be ready for July.
Well, I don't think he realizes that there are off-season injuries, things that happen that are, like you said, you got the non-football injury list. Some guys are hurt and they go on that. Other guys show up, they're not ready to perform because, something happened in the off-season. They're still recovering from something. Maybe they have something slightly wrong with them, just enough where they can put them on that list and hold them on the active roster and bring somebody else in. It's kind of a, maybe a little trick that they use to help them, get a chance to look at even more players. So,
exactly.
But generally they all have, something wrong with them, or they didn't show up, because they're, still recovering elsewhere. But you have several players this year that are holding out for more money. And of course, as a Chief fan, that leads me to Chris Jones. Okay.
That's
Chris Jones said, Chris Jones, the defensive tackle for Kansas City, he wants to be paid as at least the second best defensive tackle in the NFL from a team that's, their salary cap strapped. They don't have the kind of money that he's looking for, I don't believe. They'd have to adjust other people's contracts, and people are not willing to adjust their contracts. Anybody that was willing to adjust their deal probably already has. We know that Patrick Mahomes is gravely underpaid. Travis Kelce's underpaid. There's a lot of other players on that team that are underpaid, but he doesn't care. He's making $20 million, but he wants 25. He needs that other $5 million so that he could say he's the second best, paid defensive tackle in the league. And, it's becoming harder, to get him signed to a deal. Quinnen Williams signed with the Jets, and now he's the second highest paid defensive tackle, in the NFL behind Aaron Donald. Chris Jones is the 8th highest paid defensive tackle. Does he deserve to be paid more? Of course. But you know what you have. You know what you're doing there in Kansas City. I want to appeal to him and say, You need to play this season on the contract you have. It's his last year under contract. And then you can sign a bigger deal, because right now they're strapped. The salary cap will go up next year, as it tends to do. There's going to be players that they have to let go of and release, but I don't think he's one of them. But I don't think that he realizes the position that he's putting the Chiefs in. And I think that there's going to come a point where he may get traded because they can't afford, to pay him. It's the same thing that happened with Tyreek Hill, and they still won a Super Bowl. Kansas City drafted defensive tackles. They brought in free agent defensive tackles. I think they may have seen this coming, and, it's unfortunate. So We've had my 5 minutes of Kansas City talk. Let's talk about the Detroit Lions, who traded for Mims, the wide receiver from the New York Jets, and you released your kicker, Michael Badgley. What are you going to do at kicker, Chris?
We signed a kicker this offseason. I forget, I want to say Patterson. Which we had before. And I honestly thought it was just for camp purposes. But maybe he's going to be the kicker from now on, or unless they have another move that we haven't seen them make yet. Sims, I know he's not like a big, big seat. That's right. Patterson from the Jags. Thank you, Ron. I know Mims is not a big name receiver, really known, but he's been in the league. He can make plays. He's very fast. I think the Jets didn't use him properly over there. And everything. And it makes sense because Williams is going to miss the first 6 games. So we're going to need somebody in case somebody goes down. Marvin Jones is a veteran, so it's nice to have a younger guy to help to be able to be on rotation. And I also think it's more of a move for the run of the season because we don't want to get close to the playoffs, go down a wide receiver, and we got no one on the depth chart that we can turn to we trust. So we're finally in that position where we can bring somebody like that in. And you've seen, I'm hopefully we don't have to rely on it, but you've seen stuff like this happen in the playoff time. Big name receiver comes down, the guy that's been with the team on rotation gets a shot, comes in the playoffs, makes a name for himself, helps his team win, So we'll see how the move plays out. I don't think we can go wrong because we got Raymond, St. Brown. I like speedy receivers. We got a lot of speedy guys, and he adds right to it.
Alternate uniforms, and I love the new helmet that you guys are going to be using. The logo that's over your right shoulder there behind you is the one they got, and behind you there. I think it'll be fun. I love alternate uniforms. I wish the Chiefs would do a yellow jersey with red pants and a standard helmet. But, a lot of fans just want to keep the red and the white and, with the yellow just being an accent. Minnesota's going back to their old school uniforms. I saw the Indiana Knights Colts uniform where they got black helmets. That's pretty cool. The Browns are going with white jerseys and white pants and white helmets with the orange stripe. At some point this year, we're going to get the creamsicles for Tampa Bay. Never got to see Brady in the creamsicles, but we'll see Baker Mayfield, for Tampa Bay with the creamsicles.
Hey, they probably
But
want.
I
Hey,
love seeing alternate uniforms. I think it's a lot of fun. Sometimes they're a little ugly. I didn't care for, a couple of the ones that they had out last year. But when they bring in, throwback uniforms or alternate uniforms, I think it's kind of fun for the fans.
I'm excited. I like the Lions helmet. I think it pops. A lot of our fan base is pissed. They don't. A lot of people, a lot of Lions fans do not like the helmet. But it's like there's a lot of Lions fans, and I'm just realizing this like this year. It's like they all came out from hiding for like the last 20 years because it's like you look at the post, if you look at the loves and likes, beat the are higher than the negative. But there's still quite a few people bitching about the helmet, saying the logo looks cheap. But I think it's cool.
It's
I like it when
old
they.
school logo.
That's what I like. I like bringing the old school traditions back. You know what I mean? I get it. Our history ain't the best, but that logo came out right after they won 3 championships. So to me, it's the closest back to when we were a championship team. So I have no problem with them bringing that back.
Maybe it'll be good luck for you.
That's how I'm thinking.
You bring back the old school jersey, they should wear it opening night against the Chiefs. Then
That would be
you might
sweet.
win.
It's a Thursday night game. We usually wear our gray jerseys on Thursday night.
And alternate uniforms are on Thursdays sometimes.
It's a possibility. Brand new helmet, brand new season. Fuck it, why not?
Well, I got a couple other notes here. Just things to discuss. I listen to Fox Sports Radio, and I get a lot of good information from the Dan Patrick Show and then Colin Cowherd, although I don't agree with their takes from time to time. And one of the takes that I heard this last week is the Raiders should tank. Okay? The Raiders should tank so they can get Caleb Williams. It's a good year for the Raiders to suck. Okay? You got Josh Jacobs doesn't want to sign his franchise tender. Jimmy G had not passed his physical yet, which he has. Okay, he has passed his physical now. He's a full go and ready for training camp. I don't like, what, Cowherd had to say, when it comes to them. I think that the Raiders can be a good team. I don't want to see them beat the Chiefs. I don't want to see them, do well, but I could see them having a good year. They have good players, and Jimmy G has been a consistent winner. They've got a couple other guys that they're going to take a look at quarterback, but he's going to be the starter coming out. I think Jacobs will play. They've got Devontae Adams. They did a lot of work on their defense this offseason. And I think they'll be in the thick of the wild card round if they play their cards right. But the main point here is that Jimmy G passed his physical, and I expect that the Raiders are going to have a decent season. Despite everybody believing that Josh McDaniels is a horrible coach, which to the contrary, we haven't seen anything, to prove that he's a good coach as a head coach. We only know he's a really good offensive coordinator when he's got Tom Brady. So this is kind of a prove-it year for him. I think if the Raiders did tank and lose and just do horrible, I think McDaniels would be gone, and they just start over again in Las Vegas.
See, to me, there's a lot of things in the Vegas aspects. Now, I'm not agreeing with tank because I hate seeing teams tank. I understand how this league works, though, and sometimes you just got to do it to set yourself up. But if Jacobs really does sit out, it wouldn't be a bad choice. Second, it really depends on those players and their relationships with McDaniels behind closed doors because I don't trust McDaniels as a head coach. Offense coordinator with Belichick, the guy's dangerous. Without Belichick, the dude is known for screwing up teams real fast. I mean, he dismantled the Broncos last time he had a head coaching gig in a matter of a couple of years. You know what I mean? And I feel like the same shit is happening again with the Raiders. I mean, the exact same thing that happened in Denver to send him back, to make him go crying back to Bill, he literally did again. He chased the franchise QB out. Now he got another one, which I think can win a Super Bowl. I think Jimmy G is capable of doing it.
If they'd have run the football against Kansas City, San Francisco would have won that game.
For sure.
You know, that's all coaching.
That's all Kyle Shanahan.
And we know that. Okay. We know that, it's the inches, the real close plays, the calls on the field, you're this close to either kicking a field goal because of a holding penalty and winning the Super Bowl, or, being forced to kick a field goal and have plenty of time left on the clock so that other team could go down and possibly score.
Yeah.
And I'm talking about this particular Super Bowl right here this last year. Okay. It only takes one play to change the whole complexion of a game. And had he connected on that long pass, they score. That's a touchdown. San Francisco wins the Super Bowl. If they run the football like they did in the first half against Kansas City, San Francisco wins the Super Bowl.
Exactly. And guess what, guys, boys and girls?
Go ahead.
Kyle Shanahan is 0-2 in Super Bowls, and he made the same mistake not once, but twice by stop running the football. He did it against New England with Atlanta when he was OC down there.
Yep.
He would have won that game if he kept running the damn ball, but he stopped running the ball and went to throwing the ball with a huge lead, lost that Super Bowl, and you would think he would learn his mistake once. Nope. He has Patrick Mahomes gonna beat Patrick Mahomes in the first Super Bowl. And what does he do? Stops running the football and loses. So, I mean, you see it all the time. But see, the thing is, why Kyle Shanahan is still head coach and better than McDaniels is because he still wins.
He wins. Yep.
You know what I mean? He might not win the big game, but he wins enough for you to sell your seats and give your team a chance to go to the Super Bowl.
Only one team can win it all.
Exactly.
So you want to have a team that's consistently there in the thick of things. You make the fans feel like you're trying to win. You're giving it your all every year, and when you have that situation as a fan base, you give them hope. They buy tickets. They're invested in the season. Look at Detroit, okay?
Yep.
You're a Detroit Lions fan. I know there are years that you've been like, we ain't got a fucking chance in hell, okay? And then you've got seasons like last year where you had a little bit of hope. This year you got all kinds of hope.
Yeah,
okay? You're going to be on opening night. You're coming off a winning record. You beat the Packers and you ran Aaron Rodgers out of town. Okay, you've got only one team ahead of you in the division, and they have struggled this offseason. Okay, you've added a bunch of players on defense. The team has completely bought in. You got a lot of goodwill from Hard Knocks last year. And so, you got a lot of people that are rooting for you, as opposed to Cleveland, who doesn't have anybody rooting for them except Cleveland Browns fans because they've got Deshaun Watson. But both these franchises haven't won a championship in 50 years, and people would be rooting for Cleveland to do well if it wasn't for Watson. People are rooting for Detroit to do well because you haven't won in so long, and they want to see an underdog get there. I want Detroit to do good. I would be thrilled if you guys made it to the Super Bowl. As
I'd be
long as you're
thrilled.
not playing Kansas City,
I'd be
I'd be
thrilled
rooting
too.
for you.
And honestly, I would not be mad if we made the Super Bowl and had to go play the Chiefs in the Super Bowl. Because
Well,
how I
just
look
because
at
you get
anything
there.
I do or any sports, if you want to be the best, you got to take out the best.
And it would be a building block.
It would be a
Everybody,
building block.
you know, you look at all the sports that are out there, okay? Teams struggle against certain teams, but they get a little bit better. And then the next year they get a little bit better. And they're like, this is our year. You know, that's why a lot of people are really disappointed in the Buffalo Bills. You know,
Exactly.
Buffalo lost the AFC Championship game against the Kansas City Chiefs a couple of years ago. And people are like, oh my God, you know, then the next year they get beat in the divisional playoff round by Kansas City again because of the 13 seconds and the holy smokes and it's a miracle and all that other stuff. And they're like, there's no way they're not getting to the Super Bowl this last year. And they lay a clunker at home against Cincinnati.
Yeah.
Okay. That's why I think, you know, Buffalo is there's only two ways that you can go about it this year. Buffalo either gets to the Super Bowl this year, okay, or they're going to slide back and may not even make the playoffs. They are in a tough division now with Aaron Rodgers going to the Jets. Miami a lot of people are talking about Miami being the favorite in that division. As long as Tua stays healthy, you know, you've got other teams that have improved in this offseason that are looking to, you know, make the playoffs for the first time in a couple of years. I personally like Pittsburgh to do something this year. I still think Cincinnati is going to be good. I don't think Baltimore is going to be world beaters, but they're going to get in the playoffs. You know, Jacksonville, Kansas City, they're going through a gauntlet in that AFC. You know, they're either going to have to learn from the shit that's gone down, you know, and it could be struggling through adversity. You had Stephon Diggs, you know, didn't want to show up to OTAs earlier. You know, this will be part of the documentary when they go and they win, is that, you know, we had to overcome some obstacles. Some people weren't happy. You know, some things have happened in the offseason, but we fought through it. We did what we had to do. We lost some free agents. We brought some people in, and we managed to overcome everything that had happened to us the previous 3 years to finally get here and win it. That could be Buffalo's story. Yeah. Or back to downtrodden Buffalo. You could still have Josh Allen, and you could still have a really good team around him. But in the toughest conference in the NFL, in a very tough division, and you got salary cap issues that are going to be hitting you soon. They had to let, you know, one of their best linebackers go. You've got some of their other big name stars that are on that team that are going to want to get paid too real soon, and it could fall apart on them.
I just want to also bring this up too. A couple things is, like, you bring up teams and struggle against teams. And this is why I'm really excited, because I just want to bring up the first game of the season. Thursday night against the Chiefs, Detroit versus KC. Now, all I've been hearing, a lot of Lions fans thinking we're going to lose. And everybody from the outside of Detroit, pretty much, I've seen, always marking week one a loss. And I just want to bring this up. Because the last time we played KC, I'm pretty sure it was the year you guys won the Super Bowl, or no, it was the year you went to the Super Bowl but lost to Tom Brady. And you guys came to Ford Field. We still had Matt Patricia. We sucked. Mind you, we weren't that good with Matt Patricia. We all know the history of that. And KC barely beat us. One thing that cost us that game was that one fumble play that the guy ran back because everybody else, including half of the other Chief players, thought the play was dead. Except that one guy picked up the ball and ran it all the way back, and then the ref said, "We didn't blow a whistle." It is what it is. That's why you play until you know the play's dead, and you don't ever do that, so shit like that does not happen. But we were that close. So to me, it's like, that's why I'm really excited for this Thursday night. Because if we were that close to beating you guys then, Thursday night this year should be one hell of a game.
Oh, I expect it to be a fun game. They'll be back and forth, and it'll be a tight game at least into the third quarter. But, I just believe Kansas City is the better team, and they're on a mission to repeat. A team hasn't done it since 2003, 2004 in the Patriots. And, they proved that they are in dynasty mode this last year. They have not lost anybody that they can't overcome their loss. As long as they got Patrick Mahomes, they're a contender to win it all.
Oh, for sure.
So,
don't deny that.
They've got a good offensive line. They still got Travis Kelce, I think, for a few more years. He'll obviously retire long before Mahomes does, but they're recycling in and out defensive players, and they're going to have salary cap issues over the next 3 or 4 years for sure. Nick Bolton's going to want to get paid. Trent McDuffie's going to want to get paid. The offensive line is going to want to get paid. They've got rookie contracts for their center, who's either the number 1 or number 2 center in the NFL, next to Jason Kelce, is Creed Humphrey. Trey Smith, who was a 7th
hang on. Don't forget Frank Regano. He's in the top 3 there.
Trey Smith is a steal in the 7th round, out of Tennessee. Has been a Pro Bowler each of the last couple of years at guard. He's going to want to get paid. Now, Tooney, they've been drafted some offensive linemen. They got some guys in the works. Veach's doing a good job as GM. So you're going to have some guys that are probably going to end up, they're going to let them walk to save money. And they'll, just like we talked about in the running back spot, but they're doing it at other positions. You've got a veteran player making a lot of money. He's going to want more money, or you're going to have to let him go and replace him with somebody that's at least as good as the guy that you're letting go. Okay.
I agree.
And so the reason, and, getting back to the running backs just briefly here, the reason that everybody's having such a hard time with these running back contracts is because of Isaiah Pacheco. Okay. He's a 7th round draft pick out of Rutgers on nobody's radar, and he starts in the Super Bowl. Okay. And so everybody's like that easy in their mind to replace a running back. They went from a 1st rounder in Clyde Edwards-Helaire to a 7th rounder in Isaiah Pacheco. They're not going to re-sign Clyde Edwards-Helaire. This is going to be his last year with the Chiefs. He might even get traded to a running back needy team that doesn't want to pay the big money to one of those free agents we talked about. Because they picked up an undrafted free agent named Deneric, I think it's Deneric Prince or Deneric Pence, that he's already shown out in OTAs. He's probably going to be their kick returner and their punt returner this year.
Yeah, I heard about that.
Kadarius Toney. They're not going to expose their number 1 wide receiver in Kadarius Toney to punt and kick returns.
He's definitely graduated from that job duty. 100% there. That's a smart decision. Ron got some comments here. Let's go with the first one. the NFL as a business has a way of building certain teams up for their benefit come Super Bowl time. It's all about the cash, and that's where I see what they're doing with the Lions. I mean, in the past years, I've said more than one time that the Lions have lost close games. I've said to myself, they don't want the Lions to be in the show. I believe that to a certain extent. I don't think the NFL is actually rigging games, but don't mean they let a call here and there slide or go the opposite way and turn their heads. But that's in all sports. Because guess what? At the end of the day, it's humans calling the game.
I don't subscribe to conspiracy theories within the league. I think that they do their absolute best to make it on the up and up, because if wind got out that it wasn't, with all this gambling and shit that's been going on now, that's why the 6-game suspension for Williams, the year-long suspension for Rodgers. It is down to the integrity of the game must be as legit as possible. Or if you bring in benefit of the doubt, you're opening up so many legal. I mean, it'd end the league. The legal ramifications of proof that something wasn't legit, man. Serious legal trouble.
I'm glad you brought this up. And I watched the video, and the guy said, and I should have brought this up earlier, but it just popped in my head. I remember I watched it earlier today. The guy was saying in a video, and he was talking about why the NFL is so serious about the gambling, because I forget the player's name, but they mentioned, well, what's the big deal if a player puts $1,000 on their team? It's their money, da da da. And the guy brought up like this, because he said a lot of people don't notice and understand about gambling is when you get in debt with the casino, you can get into a debt. And if you get into debt with casinos or somebody you're betting with, if they're not betting with the casinos, say, okay, I don't know how it really work with casinos, but you got to remember, these guys are athletes. They know more people than we do. So even if it's a regular bookie off the casino site, if they get in so much debt by gambling, if the gambling gets out of control, and guess what? Regular people that bet at the casino and have a life to go gamble. I know people right here in Michigan that have gambling problems. We have 3 casinos, two to 3 casinos right downtown. 10-minute drive from my house. It's not hard to get a gambling addiction, especially when they put it on mobile stuff now. But the guy was saying, like, if these players rack a bunch of debts up by losing bets, that somebody could easily come up to him and be like, "Hey, man, we'll clear your debt, and you'll make out big if you make sure you lose this game."
Yeah,
you know what I mean.
It puts them in a compromised position, and when you bet either for or against your team, or for or against another NFL team, you are providing somebody somewhere what they would call inside information. What do you know? Do you know somebody on that team that's got a hurt foot? How come it wasn't disclosed on the injury report? Oh, we better put $1,000 down on the Atlanta Falcons, because Bozo Jenkins over here used to play for our team, and he told me he wasn't feeling that well. Hell, I need to bet on the Arizona Cardinals this week because they're going to beat their ass. Things like that, are the kind of things that compromise the integrity of the game, like we talked about, and it puts a lot of people in a spot that they're not to be in. That's why the suspensions are so steep. But I'm looking here, just got a couple more notes to discuss, and I know that I'm looking forward to. I always watch Hard Knocks, And I thought there was a chance that I was going to get to see either Chicago or New Orleans, both teams of which I'm interested to see come up a little bit this year. But they went ahead and decided to go with the Jets, even though all of the Jets don't want to do it, especially Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, he was already crying.
He's so private. He only wants to reveal everything when it's on his terms. And they've already talked about how it's going to be different than in the past because they're not going to have as much, inside information / access as they've had in the past because it's inhumane to watch someone get cut. I can kind of agree that, as I wouldn't want somebody to see me get fired. Okay.
I agree with it for a certain extent.
The players that okay, that are going to get re-signed to a practice squad, and they tell them, hey, we're going to put you on the practice squad. Those are the guys that I would still want to see how the conversation goes between the coach, the general manager, and the player. Because they're like, listen, you're not going to make the 53-man roster, but we want to sign you to the practice squad. That's the plan. Wanted to let you know now, okay, so that that we're going to sign you. Unless somebody else wants to put you on their 53, you're going to be with us. Okay, and they can already make that decision, and so those are the kind of conversations they can still have without them having a big meltdown. Because I know that after watching Hard Knocks after year, I see those players that were cut, and they're on other teams, and I'm like, hey, that dude played for Dallas or whatever. 5 years ago they had to let him go. Do you remember that Danny Amendola was with the Dallas Cowboys in training camp?
I did not watch Hard Knocks back then.
Rams for a year, signed with the Patriots, and then took off and was one of their better receivers between him and Welker and the other players on that team. He had Tom Brady, and Tom Brady helped get him a big contract there in New England. Do you remember him playing for Dallas?
I don't remember him playing for Dallas, but I remember him with the Rams.
Yeah.
I remember him with the Rams.
Yeah. He left training camp with Dallas, went to the Rams, and then ended up with New England the next year and ended up being with them for, he must have been with them for 6 or 7 years.
Yeah, he won a couple of Super Bowls, and then he came to Detroit with Matt Patricia.
Yeah.
See, here's my thing. That pisses me off because now I don't even know. I'm probably still gonna watch Hard Knocks because I just want to see how Aaron Rodgers is gonna be on camera. I want to see if he's gonna have that little sour attitude or is he gonna, actually be happy. But other than that, it really pisses me off that they're not gonna show players getting cut. That really aggravates me because to me, that was like one of the best parts of Hard Knocks is you got to see how your team treated players that they were cutting. Because, I'm sick of, like
treat them with respect or was like,
okay, for instance, when Matt Patricia was here, we had so much positive articles on the guy. Oh, the players are this, the players are buying it. Then the season would start. It wouldn't be going the way. Then all the negative shit would come out. So this whole time, as fans from the outside in, we're thinking, okay, we got a good GM. We got a good coach. The players are happy. And then we find out at the end of it that, no, our coach just sucked and was a complete asshole and literally had the whole team quit on pretty much. So to me, that was like my confidence in Dan Campbell. When I seen him in those positions, I seen him literally crying, cutting players. You know what I mean? I'm like, okay, this dude is the real deal. This dude is the guy that these players want to play for because he's showing that much passion on just telling them, hey, man, I have to cut you. I have no choice. You know what I mean? And to me, as being a fan, if I see my team on Hard Knocks, I want to really see my real coaches in those real times. I don't
Yeah.
want to,
You
well,
don't
I
want a
think he was a
facade. You
nice
want the
guy.
realness.
You know what I
Yeah.
mean? I don't want to assume, okay, they let him down real easy. You know what I mean? Because if they don't show, the coach could be in there like, you know what I mean, treating people like shit. We don't know. Not saying it actually happens like that. I'm
Yeah.
just
No,
I'm just saying.
I'm sure that they're delicate with everybody because they know that this is a lot of people's dreams are over when they do that. You
You
know,
know,
but we live in a day and age now where there are other opportunities, and I'll talk about that in a minute. But I look forward to watching Hard Knocks, and the reason why, not the in-season version like they had with the Cardinals. I never watched any of those. The Cardinals sucked, and I didn't want to see it, and they're going to be bad this year. But the in-season version that had the Colts, that was actually pretty interesting. You know, the off-season Hard Knocks where they do training camp and all that stuff, because I like seeing, diamonds in the rough show up. Because of the show, before the season even begins, who to look for.
yes.
Malcolm Rodriguez last year was the star of training camp, comes out of nowhere. You know who that guy is now. And
Yes,
you're
I
like,
do.
hey, this guy here was really good. The coaches were raving about him. You know, that kind of access with other teams, although they are starting to have every team is starting to have like YouTube videos, like behind the scenes now.
Yeah.
Okay. Kansas City has something they call Defending the Kingdom and the franchise. A lot of good information for fans to watch on YouTube and online. The Jets have Flight 23, because I've watched some of them when they first signed Aaron and they bring him in, and I check those out. They've got something called the Game Plan for Carolina Panthers. There wasn't anything for the Saints. I was looking at different teams trying to see what their behind-the-scenes videos were called. But they put together these 20, 30-minute long, behind-the-scenes shows that are similar to Hard Knocks, but they're made by,
The team.
the team. And, it's not NFL Films and it's not, anybody else. It's the actual team that's making the videos, to show their fans that they're working to improve and try to win. And I think it's great. I'm sure there's a bunch out there that I haven't seen that I would be interested in watching, but, I
And
just don't have
it's
time to
also
watch everybody's.
another source of income.
Oh, yeah. Sponsorships and everything.
Commercial fees through YouTube, you know. Because after you get so much subscribers and people watching and they put commercials in your stuff, you get paid for every view, etc.
But back to Hard Knocks, you got these guys and they get cut. And then you think, well, their NFL dream is over. And that's not always the case. Because over the last several years, we'd had some spring football leagues during the pandemic and just before that didn't last because of bad financing and the pandemic that ruined it. But the last 2 years, we've had the USFL. And they've done a decent job of showcasing these players, and tons of them were brought into training camps, and have been signed, and some of them have stuck and stayed. The MVP of the USFL 2 years ago was Cavante Turpin. Okay, he's a wide receiver / running back, and he did punt and kick returns for the Cowboys last year, and he signed a 3-year contract with them. Okay, so this year you've got Alex Magoo. Okay, he's the MVP of the USFL, and he played for the Birmingham Stallions, and he is now going to compete for the backup job at quarterback in the Green Bay Packers. And they don't really know what they've got out of Jordan Love. So we could see that guy start some games this year for Green Bay if things don't go well for Jordan. And the XFL came back this last year, and they had some good players that were playing. A.J. McCarron is the MVP there. Used to be in the NFL, played at Alabama. You know the story.
Mm-hmm.
And so he played for the St. Louis Battlehawks in the XFL. Now, he has not yet signed with any team. The reason he played in the XFL for like 98% pay cut instead of the NFL is because he knew he would get to play and his kids would get to watch him. So if he still wants his kids to get a chance to see him actually play, because if he goes to the NFL, he's going to be a backup. He's probably not going to play for somebody, you know.
That is
and
true.
So I think he'll continue to play in the XFL if he enjoys doing it, you know, gives his kids a chance to, you know, to continue to see him play. And St. Louis was not a bad team. They were very good. They were very close to being in the championship. And so maybe they'll improve because he'll be the quarterback there for a second consecutive year, and they'll have a chance at the XFL title this year.
And that's a smart move, because this is how I look at it. Is XFL lost like over $6 million. They did not have a good revenue year. They are coming back. They did sign. They signed a contract with ESPN, if I'm not mistaken. So they're coming back.
XFL's on ESPN and ABC.
Yeah, but they just signed a new contract
on NBC and Fox.
Yeah, that's right. Because UFC, or they just signed a new contract for ESPN though a couple months ago, from what I've seen, or something like that. So they're for sure coming back next year. So as long as even if they go bankrupt after next season and don't come back for the third season, A.J. McCarron can still come back to the NFL as a backup QB and still clean up at the bank somewhat at the end. So to me, he don't lose much for staying to play with his kids, and props to that guy because he's putting his kids before his pocketbook, and that's awesome. I think it's ultimate dad move.
If he could catch on with somebody that isn't a quarterback, and he could play, you know, and be the starter, or, you know, was promised a chance to be the starter, I think he'd go to the NFL, you know. But there is a lot of really good backups, and there are a lot of really good third stringers right now in the league, you know. While we have lost a bunch of the veteran quarterbacks over the last couple of years, you know, it has gotten replenished a little bit here over the last couple of seasons with some pretty good talent. And so nobody's really super desperate for a quarterback. They're desperate for an elite quarterback, which, you know, it's safe to say he's a backup quarterback. He can fill in and be a starter for a couple of games, but I don't see him being a long-term answer for somebody, quarterback.
Here's the thing. The only team I think it could be maybe possibly a smart move that they might want to reach out could be Atlanta Falcons. And the only way I'm saying that is Riddler's still a rookie. You could probably get AJ for a decent price. Obviously, you have to beat the XFL salary, which I don't think that's too hard. And then if Riddler's not working out, you can go to AJ, or maybe you let him play out for a starting job. But I understand if they don't do it, but that wouldn't be a bad move, I don't think, because Atlanta don't really have a good backup after Riddler right now.
Oh, yeah, they do. Yeah, they do. They got Taylor Heineke.
Oh, yeah, my bad. I forgot they got him.
No, I mean, listen, okay, if he's in it for the money, then he'll come and play in the NFL. But as I said, I think he wants to compete. He still wants to play. He's made probably enough money that he's going to be fine. But he wants to actually play in games, and he wants his kids to see him play. And that's why he played for the St. Louis Battlehawks last year. and he may do it again this year, not only because his kids will get to see him play, but if the team improves, they got a huge fan base there. St. Louis deserves an NFL team, and they keep getting screwed.
I agree.
But the Battlehawks, they could if they do a few improvements here and there with a fresh batch of kids that they bring in, they could win the XFL title this next year.
Yeah.
With him as the starting quarterback.
When I used to drive a truck,
I mean, it may not be an NFL championship, but a championship's a championship. He's playing them games, whatever state you're in, whatever league you're in, you're there to win.
And to be 100% honest,
you won. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I know you won. I get what you're saying. And here's my point on it is, be honest, if he won a championship, I don't care if it's XFL. If he won a championship in St. Louis, that city would go fucking crazy for him. And he would get so much appreciation. Because when I used to drive a truck, I used to go to St. Louis a lot when I pulled for a lot of Chrysler loads, when I did all the big three. And they had a place out there, and I would go out there and I would talk to the people, because you would see some people listen to games, and just talking to them and seeing how depressed they were that the Rams left. Most of those guys that I talked to anyway, they literally were diehard Rams fans. They said they literally burned all their shit and would not watch another Rams game because they left.
It's happened to them twice. The Cardinals leave town, then the Rams leave town, all for a better stadium and more money. And I mean, it's a business, it's a business, and they're all out to get the most that they can. You got these franchises, they bought the franchises for maybe we'll call it, a bunch of them bought them for, $1 billion. And now they're worth $4 billion, just 2 or 3 years later. Because of inflation, the price of the dollar, the more advertising money that they get, the more TV money that they're getting, the more, sponsorships that they get. You look at, I think it was Forbes magazine named the Dallas Cowboys the most valuable franchise in the NFL. They were worth $4 billion 6 years ago. They're worth $8 billion today. 6 years, they doubled the value of the franchise. They're still playing at the same stadium. Okay, they haven't won a Super Bowl. Now they have AT&T on the stadium, and they got Pepsi, and they got Ford, and they got all these sponsorships and everything. What did they do, to double the value of the franchise? And it's other teams that have been sold for certain amounts of money. Denver got sold. Carolina's been sold recently. Minnesota, maybe 10 years ago, was sold. And so you've got these franchises, and when they get sold,
the Lions weren't sold. Hang on, the Lions weren't sold.
Not the Lions.
Oh,
I didn't say Lions.
I thought you did.
Panthers, Broncos, Vikings, because it was Red McCombs and then Ziggy Wilf, and then it was Jerry Richardson, and now it is starts with a T. Can't think of his name. Denver was sold. Pat Boland's family, sold it to the Walton family, Walmart. But these franchises get sold, and the price goes up because they're in demand. Other people want to own them. The prestige of owning a franchise, you go from a team that's worth $1 billion. Well, I'll give you $4 billion for the Denver Broncos, so they can outbid everybody. Well, Denver's worth $4 billion. Dallas was worth $4 billion. Now they're worth $8 billion, just like that, because other franchises are getting sold. And Vegas is in big trouble soon, okay, because they're a poor franchise. Okay, they got that new stadium. Al Davis passed away. Mark Davis was heavily invested. But if something happens to his mom, okay, because the mom has all of Al Davis's shares, if something happens to her, he's got to pay estate tax for the franchise and won't be able to afford it because of the value of the franchise. And the Davis family will have to sell their majority stake in the Raiders real soon. Going to happen within probably the next 5 years.
Wow.
Yeah. And so these big names, that are one of the big name owners in, sports, the Davis family, you had the Maras with the Giants. They sold part of it, to the other dude there, so that, when this happens and somebody passes away, they'll still be able to afford the franchise taxes and things. Modell sold part of his, stake to the guy that owns the Raiders now, so that when he passed away, the guy would be able to afford the other half of the franchise. And, a lot of these things have been happening over the years, but there's nobody to take over. They need to, and they probably will, start selling part of the team off. Tom Brady became an investor in the Raiders. Okay. They're going to have to start selling some other minority stakes in the team to other people, because if she passes away, they'll lose the franchise. He won't be able to afford to pay the estate tax to keep the team with the family.
That makes a lot of sense. And
Yeah,
Ron got a comment. He says, he thinks we're underestimating Atlanta. Well, my response to that, Ron, is I'm not underestimating Atlanta. I'm just being real. Atlanta has a good defense. They have a good offense. They had a decent offense. They came on strong last year, but this is also Riddler's first year as a starting QB in the league. They got Heineke though, and I'm surprised that Washington let him go, because to me he was like their little Superman for him. So I mean, I'm not saying they're going to be a trash team. I don't think they finished last place in their division. I think they're going to be a team
but they're not winning the division.
I think they're going to be able to fight for a wild card if everything goes right. Yeah. But I was just being realistic, because I forgot about Heineke being in Atlanta as the backup QB.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking they just got Riddler and somebody blow in.
Yeah. Desmond Ridder is going to have a good running game. They've got Tyler Algiers from last year. They still got Cordarrelle Patterson, who does a lot of kick returning and punt returning, and he was the featured back, a couple years ago. And now they bring in Bijan Robinson from Texas, so they're going to have a good running game.
Oh, for sure.
But they got, they got London Drake and Kyle Pitts to throw the ball to. They traded Calvin Ridley to Jacksonville. So I don't see, whether, you're going to have a guy who's kind of learning on his feet as he goes in, I would call it a weak division. But like I said, Carolina is coming up. I think New Orleans has, with Derek Carr and that defense, I think they're going to be a lot better off. Tampa is not going to be good, I don't think. They've lost quite a few players, and Baker Mayfield is not Tom Brady. And they're probably going to lose LeGarrette Blount, Leonard Fournette. I always get them two mixed up. To New England. You're talking about, Heineke, got let go by Washington. Washington finally gets sold. Love it. Finally gets sold. Dan Snyder out of the NFL. It's been a long time coming. He's got quite a few skeletons in his closet, and apparently he had a bunch of, dirt on a lot of the other owners and the things that they do, or at least that's the tough talk that he had. So they were ready to get rid of him, kicked him out the door. The team was bought by Josh Harris's group that includes Magic Johnson, who I guess is going to be the spokesman for the team going forward. He's one of the reasons they brought him in, is to, kind of be the face of the franchise, a franchise that has lost its way over the last 25 years. under Dan Snyder's ownership. And, I like their coach in Ron Rivera. I like their defensive coordinator in Jack Del Rio. I think they've got some pretty decent players on the offensive and defensive line. They got Terry McLaurin at wide receiver. They've added some good running backs, but they are in a tough division. And I think that if they can turn things around when it comes to the overall feel of the franchise, now that Snyder's not there, I think they could probably be contenders in 2 or 3 years, but they're going to have to find themselves a quarterback. Now they got, is it Sam Howell?
I think so, yeah.
That he's gonna start out as the starter. They brought in Jacoby Brissett, to be the backup. He'll be the veteran presence there to help, teach this kid and move themselves along. But, I could see them being improved rather quickly now that the Dan Snyder effect is out of the building. I think things will start to turn around, with the new ownership group, because these guys have owned franchises. I think he is a part owner of it's either the Philadelphia 76ers or the Toronto Raptors. Magic Johnson used to be a part owner in the Lakers. He's been a part owner of the Dodgers before. And so he knows how to help run a franchise, how to put on good PR and do good for them. And I will not be surprised at all if within a few years they'll be contending. And I won't be surprised at all if within the next couple of years they change the name again, because I don't think anybody cared for Commanders. People went with it because it's been their team. But I have always thought, and there is a huge amount of people out there that have always wanted them to change it to the Washington Warriors. That way they can keep some of the, the history of the team and the franchise. They won't be the Redskins, but they have helmets, and they've had them in the past. They're throwback helmets, really, that kind of look like, some of the Florida State Seminole helmets. They've got the arrow with the feather hanging on it.
Mm-hmm.
They can have those. That's not a red face. That's not degrading to Indians in any way, to Native Americans. I think that they can go and do that. I think that would make a lot of people really happy, because it will restore, a lot of the history of the team, and still appease people that were upset about, one, the name change, and two,
Well, to
what
me,
the name used to be.
If you ask me, they should have never changed the name from Redskins. There was nothing wrong or offensive against Redskins.
Well, the Indians changed to the Guardians in baseball. There's been some talk, and I would not be happy if they changed the name of the Atlanta Braves or the Kansas City Chiefs. I just don't. I would not be happy with that at all, as a fan of both of those franchises. And so I can understand when people were mad that they changed the name. You had several Native Americans that came out and said, we were happy that they were called that. There was nothing wrong with that. We have red face. It's all right. We're happy. We're celebrated. Okay.
That's how I looked at it.
Instead, it become like a woke situation, where they're trying to make more out of something than it needed to be. And, once sponsors said that they were going to do something about it, that forced Dan Snyder to change the name of the team. Washington football team was actually pretty decent. It didn't sound good in the beginning, but it started to grow on us. But Washington Commanders, yeah, not a fan.
No.
Well, my friend, the only other thing that I have on my notes here, we have talked about so many things.
Yeah, we did.
Is this is kind of, I missed this when I was talking about free agents being signed and brought in, is that Marcus Peters, former corner for the Ravens, Rams, Chiefs, is going to meet with the Raiders tomorrow going to work out for them and could possibly end up getting signed with them. I know he wore out his welcome in Kansas City. He's worn out his welcome in Baltimore. I'm not sure if that's what happened with the Rams or not, but just just attitude problems. But he is a very good corner. He has a lot of interceptions, and he can be considered shut down from time to time. And so that could be an interesting pickup for the Raiders tomorrow.
Something they need over there. So I mean, it wouldn't be a bad signing on their behalf. But we've covered a lot. It was good to be back. I was glad to see Ron. Brandon stopped in. Appreciate it. My buddy Matthew. Everybody who watched us tonight, appreciate it. It felt good.
Thanks for coming in and joining us. We've been off for quite a while. I had some health issues. I had blood clots in my lungs and had to start taking some blood thinners. Once I was on the blood thinners, after a few days, I didn't have to be on oxygen anymore. I was able to go back to work. I've had a lot of good things happen to me since that. Got me a new pickup. And
I seen that right in the start.
Happy, got the kids enrolled in school and ready for this upcoming year. And, I'm doing real well. I've lost a little bit of weight, not a lot, but a little bit, now that they changed my medicine up a little bit. My diet's a little different. But, I'm looking forward to starting to do this again. We've got just a few weeks here. We're coming up on the season. We're going to do, I think, it'll be the first Tuesday after the first Monday night football game of the season. We'll go from Sunday night spectacular to Tuesday night shows, and we'll recap what happened over the weekend and everything, and give our predictions and talk about week 2. Week 1, maybe we'll want to do want to have a show on the Wednesday before the Thursday night game, or maybe Tuesday night.
We could definitely do
for the year.
We could definitely do a pre-kickoff show.
Yeah, and so
pre-kickoff spectacular.
It's always spectacular here.
That's why you need to like and follow 4th&Goal Sports so you don't miss a show.
That's right. And then you turn over to my page and you follow me, and I'll give you picks with David.
Exactly.
I'll have a Thursday night pick, and I'll do my my Sunday and Monday picks will come out Sunday morning generally. Picks with David.
Yes.
Not that you won't know what I'm picking when we go into it,
Oh, I know what you're picking.
Deal. We'll be making our picks Tuesday night, or at least our initial impressions, of what we think is going to happen the next week, because we won't have the injury reports or anything like that going in. But
exactly.
I plan on talking about some fantasy football next weekend. I'm going to talk about some fantasy football positions. There's a lot of different kinds of leagues out there. I'm in both standard PPR leagues that are renewed year after year. And then I've also got a dynasty league that I've been playing in going on almost 4 years now. And, the different ways to draft rookie drafts, where you're drafting rookies. We'll do some more talking about gambling, I'm sure, the things that are of interest to us football fans as the season, starts coming up. Everybody's going to have predictions. Everybody's going to be doing their fantasy football leagues. We'll have injuries during training camp and the preseason, I'm sure. And people will get signed off the street, and it'll be pretty interesting to see who does get signed and who doesn't, and whether these running backs are going to, sign their franchise tenders and start the season or not. But that's all I got for now. I want to thank everybody for joining us. Thank you, Chris, for hosting again.
No problem, buddy. I just want to bring up one thing just because next week we might have to do the show on a Monday. Because I'm camping next weekend and I'm not sure what time I'll actually be home on Sunday. Yeah.
That's all right.
So.
And, just because we're starting back up doesn't mean we got to do it every Sunday.
No, I know that.
We'll advertise when we're going to have a show, and hopefully we'll have our following follow us around.
I'll get with you.
Chris's page on Facebook, my page on Facebook, 4th&Goal Sports.
Because our broadcast is pinned to my personal page as well. So
and it's also on YouTube.
And David got it on his. So there's always a way to follow us. We're also on YouTube, Twitch, and Kick. All 4th&Goal broadcasts. It's pretty simple. So any platform you can follow us. I'm in the works to look on, see how we can't get it possibly on Spotify. I'm trying to figure that out as well. But I'll get with you later in the week and we'll figure out if we're going to do it Monday or Sunday if we do one. So all right, guys, you have a good night. David, thank you guys for all joining us and welcoming us back. It's glad to be back. Let's get the season. We're this close.
Right there.
All right, later, guys.